Good afternoon, all of you. So again, we are back for our English class, right? And I hope all of you are attentively listening and following the class. So before I go into the lesson, I would like to give you an outline of how the paper would look like, the semester paper, and how it is divided and how the marks are divided. I would like to give you an overview of the paper, right, English paper, how it looks like. So just follow carefully and so this is English paper. I told you it's for 75 marks. Right. So this semester paper, end of semester paper, is it's for 75 marks. It's for 75 marks, right? And the paper consists of it's for 75 marks. So this paper, the semester paper, right, and it's for 3 hours. It's for 3 hours. 3 hours. Okay. So section A, it's prose. You have from prose. You have from prose and right. So 3 into 5, 15. Okay. So they'll give you a total of 4 questions. Total of 4 questions, and out of 4 questions you have to answer 3, and each one is 5 marks. Okay, right. And then all of you take it down, take down this what I am giving on the board. Take a notebook and just write it down, so it will be easy for you to follow what I am teaching. So all of you take your book and just write it down, okay. And then second is section B. Second is section B. Section B is poetry. So from poetry, the same procedure, okay. You will have 4 questions. You have 4 questions and 3 into 5, 15. Okay, 3 into 5, 15. So section A, section B. Are you taking it down? Okay, it's better you take it down in a notebook, so it will be easy for you when I am teaching this. Right? So section A, section B, right? Section A is prose, section B is poetry. Okay, all of you have taken it down. I shall be going into next, I will be erasing this, so please follow carefully. 3 into 5, 15, 3 into 5, 15. you will have 4 questions. You have to write only 3 questions. Attempt just 3. Out of 4, attempt 3. Attempt any 3. Okay, I will write here. Okay. Okay, attempt any 3. The same here also. Okay, attempt any 3. The same here, both are same. Attempt any 3 questions. Out of 4 questions, attempt any 3 questions. So, prose, poetry, okay, section A, section B. Right, I shall go to section C now. Section C is short story. Section C is short story. Now here you just have to follow carefully. Short story 1 into 10. Okay, 1 into 10. Okay. Answer any one question. Okay, answer any one question. They'll give you two questions, right? They give you 2 questions. They'll give you 2 questions and answer. Okay, 1 question. So 1 into 10 is 10. Right. We'll move on to section D. Okay, move on to section D. The same procedure for section D. You have 1 into 10 is equal to 10. Right? Any answer any one question. Okay, answer any one question. Okay, they'll give you 2 questions. Right. So section A, section C, section D. Right. So 30, 40, 50. Right. And section D is 1 act play. Drama. You have 1 act play. This is 1 act play. Prose, poetry, short story, 1 act play. Everything in the syllabus. Do you follow me? Are you able to follow me? I hope you are writing it down in your books, all of you. Keep a notebook for English and just jot down what I am telling you. Right? So section A prose, section B poetry, okay, section C short story, and section D 1 act play. So 15 for prose, 15 marks for poetry, 10 marks for short story, 10 marks for 1 act play. 2 questions, answer any one. Same procedure. 2 questions, answer any one. Okay, right. Now we are coming to section E. Section E is, okay, 5 into 5. Five into 5. Okay. Now section C, you have pronunciation. You have pronunciation, grammar and vocabulary. Vocabulary, pronunciation, grammar and vocabulary. So answer any five. In this answer any five, you will have 1, 2, 3, 4, okay. So 1, 3, 4 and you will have okay, answer any 5. They will give you 6 items, okay, 4 and then they may give you 6, 7 also, 4 and they will give you 5, 6, 7. So just write any 5, answer any 5, okay, answer any 5. Answer any 5. So this section is grammar section. This section is the grammar section, like I showed you in the textbook, okay. You have these grammar items here, language activity, okay, all of you are able to look at this, okay, grammar activity. You have here this language activity, right. So you have the prose, poetry, short story, one act play and grammar activity. In the grammar activities, articles, prepositions, tenses, interrogatives, question tags, right. So in section E, you will get this items, articles, fill in the blanks with articles or fill in the blanks with suitable preposition, or interrogatives, give suitable interrogatives or give suitable question tags. So this is the grammar item here, section E, grammar item. They will give you 6 or 7, right, or they may give you exactly 5. You have to answer 5 into 5, 25. So 25 plus 50, the previous, okay, 25 plus 50, 25 plus 50. Okay, 25 plus 50 total, that's the total paper, total marks you will be given for your paper, English paper. So this section A, section A and section B, 3 into 5, no. So here 3, okay, each question, okay, is 5 marks. So you can write 2 pages, 2 pages, approximately 200 words, no, 200 words, 200 words, right. So each question, so section A and B, prose and poetry, you have 3 questions and it's 5 marks. So for each question you can write approximately 2 pages. And then section C and D, section C and D, essay questions, okay, essay, it's 10 marks. So I would say you better write around 200 to 300 words, right, 200 300, like you can write around 4 pages, 4 pages to 5 pages, okay, 4 to 5 pages. Okay. So for prose and poetry, short, little bit long questions, 3 questions, 3 into 5. I told you we can use write for 2 pages, and section C and D essay 10 marks. So you can write 200 to 300 pages. That is the composition of your okay. So that is the question paper. I have told you about the question paper, English question paper. Tomorrow I will tell you about CSS. We can talk about discuss about CSS tomorrow later on. Right. So we shall come back to today's discussion. Yesterday we were discussing the lesson. I started the lesson, the knowledge society. The Knowledge Society by APJ Abdul Kalam. Right. So this is the lesson we are discussing, and I started the lesson. So I hope all of you are following the lesson. Try to follow. Even though you are not having textbook with you, but don't worry about that. Right. So yesterday we were looking at the introduction to the lesson, and I told you about the first paragraph. Right. Abdul Kalam talks about our great civilization, our great culture, and we have a very glorious past. And he says India is a land of knowledge. I was telling you, we were discussing yesterday that India is a land of knowledge, no doubt about that. And I told you that our country has produced many great scientists, thinkers, right, professors, engineers, and very great politicians also. So here Abdul Kalam talks about rediscovering our knowledge, how to rediscover our knowledge. He says the youth have lost their knowledge. I mean, lost it. Like they are not pursuing knowledge nowadays. And Abdul Kalam says every one of us, especially the youth of this country, should pursue knowledge. Seek knowledge. Knowledge will make you become enlightened. Once you are enlightened, it will remove the ignorance from you. And once ignorance is removed from you, you will be a better individual. You can be able to survive in this society and in this world. And knowledge will make you a better person. That's what Abdul Kalam is trying to convey through this lesson. Right? Knowledge will make you a good individual. An individual able to survive against all odds in this society. That's it. That is what we have, even our education policy, Indian education policy, clearly states that education should be available for everyone. Primary education, secondary education, higher levels and university education should be available for everyone. And the government of India is nowadays taking all steps to see that education reaches everyone. Right? You know the slogan, no? Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, each one teach one. Yeah? Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, that slogan, each one teach one. And after independence, we had this Operation Blackboard. Operation Blackboard. This Operation Blackboard is the plan to provide blackboards and benches to all the classrooms in our country. So education is a very important sector that is being developed in our country, and Abdul Kalam was very much concerned about education, especially the youth. He wanted the youth to be well qualified, and he wanted the youth of our country to have knowledge so that they can be useful people in the society and citizens for the country. So he says, okay, so once this rediscovery is done, it will not require much struggle to achieve the quality of life, strength and sovereignty of a developed nation. Knowledge has many forms and it is available at many places. Yes, knowledge is available in different forms, in many forms. Right? Of course, it is available in textbooks and in library reference books, but apart from that, I would say that knowledge is also available in magazines, newspaper, and not only print media, even the audio media, audio visual, okay, television, right, and internet, okay, knowledge is available, not only in textbook. I would say that you better go beyond your textbooks to gather knowledge, right. Textbooks give you some amount of knowledge, no doubt about that. But beyond your textbooks, it's good that you refer books to the library. You also read useful magazines, journals, encyclopedias, right? And also try to get knowledge now through the latest gadgets like YouTube. Okay, so knowledge is available at many places. It is acquired through education, information, intelligence, and experience. Right? You go to school and have education, you get knowledge. You go to the library and gather some information from the magazine or from the newspaper, you get knowledge, you will get knowledge. Intelligence, curiosity. You have curiosity, you look here and there and you find out from people what's going on, you find out what's available in the society. Intelligence, you get knowledge. Experience, no? Your life experiences, right? Your encounters in life, when you go to the shopping complex or when you go to the bank, when you go to the post office, when you meet your friends or when you come across any situation in life, these experiences also give you knowledge, right? They make you to be a better person. That means experiences teach you how to modify or change yourself or to better yourself, right? So knowledge is available in many forms, Abdul Kalam says. It is available in academic institutions with teachers, in libraries, in research papers, seminar proceedings, and in various organizations and workplaces with workers, managers, in drawings, in process sheets, and on the shop floor. See, many places, many ways you can gather knowledge. You go to a conference or you attend a lecture by an eminent scientist, or you listen to a workshop, you attend a workshop and take part, active part in a workshop, you get knowledge, right? You go to the library, you read many books, you read different magazines, journals, newspapers, you get knowledge. It's available with teachers. Yeah, you go to class, listen to your teacher, take down notes, what your teacher says, you get knowledge. That's also one form of knowledge. And it's available in research papers, academic papers. Research papers are academic papers which are written or produced after doing a study on a particular topic. Okay, on a particular topic, they do a study on a particular topic and they write a brief paper called research paper where they have done some study. So when you read research papers, you get knowledge. It's available with workers. Yes, people who are on the field, people in various vocations, occupations. You go to a doctor, he has knowledge to give to you. You go to a banker, he has some knowledge which he can share with you. You go to a carpenter or you go to any other skilled craftsman, he has some knowledge which he can share with you. Right? Do you understand? So everyone has knowledge. Right from the skilled laborer to unskilled laborer to the blue collar professional, teachers, doctors, engineers, scientists, people working in the industrial sector, everyone has knowledge. And knowledge, though closely linked to education, comes equally from learning skills such as those possessed by our artists, craftsmen, hakims, vaidyas, philosophers and saints, and also our housewives. A very good observation Abdul Kalam makes here. He says knowledge is available with everyone. The saint, the sadhu, right? The rishi, the guru, right? The craftsman, the carpenter, the welder, or the whatever it is, the goldsmith, the people who produce in the industrial sector, everyone has knowledge and we can learn from them. And he says even housewives, yes, your mothers or housewives, they have some knowledge, they can share with you some knowledge. So knowledge is available with many people, right? And the knowledge is not the domain of particular individuals or particular groups of people, or it does not belong to a particular country, right? No country, any country in the world, no country in the world can say knowledge belongs to us, it is ours, it is our property. No, knowledge is not individual property. It's available and it should be accessed by everyone, and everyone should have access, can have access to knowledge. Knowledge plays a very important role in their performance and output too. So these people, the Vaidyas, the philosophers, the saint, the artisans, the craftsmen, the housewife, for all of them, if they want to give a good output, right, knowledge is very important. Same thing with you students. If you want to give good output, or if you want to get good marks, or you want to achieve good results in your examination, outcome, the outcome of your education or the outcome of your learning, then knowledge plays a very important role, right? It's very important. Don't neglect knowledge. Our heritage and history, the rituals, epics and traditions that form part of our consciousness are also vast resources of knowledge, as are our libraries and universities. So Abdul Kalam says, apart from libraries and the universities in our country, our rituals, our epics, our heritage, our tradition, everything contains knowledge, right? No doubt about that. No doubt about that. Don't think that you get knowledge only from libraries and schools and colleges and universities, but knowledge is also available in our tradition, in our culture, in our rituals, right? In our epics, in our Puranas, in our Itihasas, everything. Okay, we have knowledge, and knowledge is there even in these ancient texts. So don't forget about that. There is abundance of unorthodox, earthy wisdom in our villages. Abdul Kalam says even our villages contain storehouse of knowledge. Our villages are a storehouse of knowledge. Yes, of course, no doubt about that. Right? Especially you meet a villager will have a huge amount of practical knowledge, which sometimes we city people or educated people may tend to forget. Right? So our villages are also storehouses of knowledge. Right? They also give us knowledge. Villages and our villages. So Abdul Kalam here is giving importance to villages. They are the backbone of our country. Like agriculture. Agriculture is the backbone of our economy. No doubt about that. And I think all of you will agree that agriculture is the backbone of our economy. And in the same way, Abdul Kalam says, our villages have abundance of knowledge that we can learn, that we can acquire. There are hidden treasures of knowledge in our environment, in the oceans, bioreserves, deserts, in the plants and animal life. So Abdul Kalam says knowledge is there in our environment around us, right? In our oceans, in our forests, in our hills, hill stations, in our deserts, right? So knowledge is available. It's around us. Only thing we need to utilize it, and we need to realize that knowledge is there around us and make use of it. In animal life, knowledge is there in plant and animal life. Every state in our country has a unique core competence for a knowledge society. So Abdul Kalam says every state in our country has its own uniqueness and traditions and culture, and that itself is a source of knowledge for all of us, right? The great aspect of our country is that we belong to different states, and our country is made up of different states, and every state has their own language, culture, tradition, food habits, okay, dressing habits, but still we are called as India, we are called as a country. And Abdul Kalam says that every state can teach you something. Every state can teach you something. That means the culture of that state, or what the people practice in a particular state, or what the people follow in a particular state. It is storehouse of knowledge, and we can gain lot of information from every state. Knowledge has always been the prime mover of prosperity and power. So when we look back at history, and when we look back at all the great people who made up history, who are made up of this subject history, right? For all of these people, knowledge has been the main aspect for prosperity, right? Knowledge has been the source for the development of a country, right? Knowledge has been the source for the development of a country and for the growth of a country, right? If a country has to prosper, then its citizens should be having good source of knowledge and good amount of knowledge. They should seek knowledge. A country which has knowledgeable people, a country which has well educated people, that country will develop, and that country will prosper and will go on to greater heights. The acquisition of knowledge has therefore been the thrust area throughout the world. So not only in India, not only in our country, but all over the world, throughout the world, education has been the prime focus for all the people in the world. Every government in every country, they focus on education. Of course, economic development and industrial development should be there, but along with that, it is said that countries which focus on knowledge, which give importance to knowledge, which give importance to education, those countries tend to be far ahead of the other countries, right? Additionally, in India, there has been a culture of sharing it, not only through traditions of Guru Sishya, but also by its spread to neighboring countries through travelers who came to Nalanda and other universities drawn by their reputation as centers of learning. So, India has a culture of sharing. That is what Abdul Kalam says here. We are a people who share our knowledge, right? And even I can say that we are a people who share our resources with our neighboring countries, right? Helping the people of our neighboring countries. And this tradition of sharing, Abdul Kalam gives us the example of the Gurukula system. I think all of you are aware of the Gurukula system, where the Guru and Sishya stayed in one place, and where the Sishyas learnt, where the disciples learnt not only education but also other skills, life-saving skills and other skills like archery, horse riding, things like that. So, Gurukulam system, this Gurukulam system is a very old Indian concept. It's a very old famous Indian concept, and many countries have admired our Gurukula system, and even they have copied, or they have tried to implement this Gurukula system into their education system also, right? So, this Guru Sishya relationship, like the Sishya stays with the Guru for a short period of time, or for 1 year or 6 months, learning from the Guru, right? Learning discipline, how to do things, how to learn things, right? The discipline of getting up early in the morning, studying your books and subjects, and doing other works in the afternoon or in the evening, Okay, so it's an all-round development, all-round kind of education that we get in the Gurukula system. And Abdul Kalam talks about Nalanda. Nalanda, the ancient seat of learning in India. Nalanda was Nalanda University. Nalanda University can be said to be the first university that India had. Okay, and Nalanda was a great center of learning where travelers and scholars, philosophers from all over the world visited and stayed there in Nalanda, and they learned many things at Nalanda. Right? So Nalanda was a center of learning in our education system, and we are proud of that fact. India is endowed with natural and competitive advantages as also certain distinctive competencies. So Abdul Kalam talks now about our advantages and about regarding our natural resources. India is endowed with lot of riches and natural gifts like ever flowing rivers, right? Lush mountains, forests, okay, and vast agricultural lands for producing rice and wheat and other food items. Okay, so India is blessed with a good environment, right? We are blessed with good abundant resources, natural resources, which we are using for our development, and also we are exporting and we are getting precious foreign income, and our economy is growing and our economy is developing because we are using our natural resources very wisely and exporting them to other countries. But these are scattered in isolated pockets and the awareness of these is inadequate. But Abdul Kalam says many people still don't know the vast natural resources that we have. He says that many people are not taking advantage or making use of the natural resources that our country has. Lack of awareness, that's what he says. The youth of our country have a lack of awareness of certain issues. And Abdul Kalam says that a youth of the country, of our country, the youth of India should be aware of their traditions, of their culture, and of their glorious history, right? During the last century, the world has changed from being an agricultural society in which manual labor was the critical factor to an industrial society. Yes, a lot of change has happened, right? And many countries during the last 10 years or 20 years, they have transformed themselves from agricultural societies to industrial societies. Of course, they haven't neglected agriculture, but we see that many countries have jumped forward from agricultural dependence to industrial excellence. And India also, once upon a time, before independence and even a few years after independence, we were an agricultural society. Our economy was depending mostly on agriculture, and slowly the government of India after independence, our politicians and our governing body members, they created 5-year plans, and these 5-year plans slowly transformed our agricultural society into a developed industrial society, right? So Abdul Kalam says that the world has changed from being an agricultural society to an industrial society. In agricultural society, it was manual labor, but in industrial society, it is management of technology, capital and labor, right? In the 21st century, a new society is emerging where knowledge is the primary production resource instead of capital and labor. Efficient utilization of this existing knowledge base can create wealth for us in the form of better health, education and other indicators of progress. So Abdul Kalam says, we need to utilize our knowledge properly, right? So we need to utilize our knowledge. If we utilize our knowledge properly, we can have better healthcare system, education system, we can have better infrastructure, right? And our industries also can produce sufficiently for us, right? So I think I will stop here, the time is up. So this lesson we shall continue tomorrow, right? So we are looking at the Knowledge Society by APJ Abdul Kalam, right? What is the lesson? The name of the lesson is the Knowledge Society by, who is the author? Who is the author? The author is APJ Abdul Kalam, right? So we shall continue tomorrow, and I shall give you also tomorrow the CSS question paper, how it will look like, so you can have a brief idea of the CSS paper, and also I will share with you the syllabus for English also, okay? For first mid what will be there, second mid what will be there, right? So thank you for listening. We shall meet tomorrow, right?